Have you ever imagined a life where fear holds no power over you, where each worry and danger melts away beneath an unbreakable shield of protection? Welcome to Guide by Grace. Today we're journeying into the heart of Psalm 91, often celebrated as the ultimate prayer of divine protection and peace. This psalm extends a profound invitation to dwell under the shadow of the Almighty, a place where nothing harmful can reach us. But what does it mean to truly rest in God's shadow? And how does abiding in His presence bring us a deep, unshakable peace, even in life's fiercest storms? Join us as we uncover the depth of these promises and discover how they can transform the way we live each day. Psalm 91 is often called the Psalm of Protection because it speaks directly to the human need for safety, comfort, and a place to belong. This psalm opens with a powerful image. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. In just one sentence, it presents God as a refuge, a secure haven that shields us from life's trials and dangers. This vivid language not only comforts believers, but also reassures them of God's constant presence, especially in times of distress. When we speak of God as a refuge, we're not simply referring to a distant, abstract deity. Instead, Psalm 91 presents God as a protective force who is intimately close, someone believers can rely on fully. This refuge isn't a temporary shelter, but a steadfast place where we can continually dwell, no matter the circumstances. The word dwell here indicates permanence, a choice to live in God's presence rather than just visiting it in times of trouble. Think about a fortress in the ancient world. It was designed to withstand attacks, protect those inside, and offer a place of peace and safety. God, as described in Psalm 91, serves as this kind of fortress. He is immovable, unbreakable, and His strength becomes our protection. This image is especially relevant in times of uncertainty when we, as individuals, may feel vulnerable or overwhelmed. Knowing that we have a spiritual refuge, a place of unwavering stability in a changing world, can be deeply reassuring. Throughout history, people have turned to God as a source of refuge in times of great struggle and conflict. One striking example is George Washington, the first president of the United States. During the American Revolutionary War, Washington faced overwhelming odds against the British forces. He led a ragtag army that was underfunded, poorly equipped, and often outnumbered. Yet, Washington was known for his strong faith and frequently prayed for guidance and protection. He believed deeply in God's providence and took refuge in that faith, allowing him to remain calm and resolute even when defeat seemed imminent. Washington's reliance on divine refuge wasn't just an abstract concept. It was his lifeline during some of the darkest days of the war. Stories are told of him retreating to pray in the forest at Valley Forge, where he sought strength and guidance. This faith in a higher power's protection gave him the courage to persist, even in the face of insurmountable challenges. Washington's trust in God as his refuge allowed him to lead with strength and determination, ultimately securing victory and independence for his young nation. This historical example reinforces the idea that relying on God as a refuge can provide not just emotional comfort, but also the mental clarity and courage needed to confront real-life adversities. When Washington turned to God for refuge, he wasn't asking for an escape from his circumstances, but rather for the strength to endure them. This is the essence of what Psalm 91 offers, a place of security that empowers us to stand strong amid trials. In our modern context, the idea of refuge has evolved but remains just as essential. Today, the world moves at a fast pace, with new challenges emerging constantly, from economic instability to global pandemics. many people find themselves searching for a sense of peace and security. Psalm 91 speaks directly to this need by offering a refuge that transcends physical or financial security. It presents God as a place of emotional and spiritual safety, where believers can find rest and renewal. Consider the struggles of well-known philanthropist and tech mogul Bill Gates. Known worldwide for his success, Gates has faced numerous challenges, including public scrutiny, health crises, and pressures that come with wealth and influence. Despite these pressures, he has often spoken about how important it is to have a sense of purpose and inner peace, which he finds through his belief in a higher purpose. For Gates, his work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation serves as a source of purpose, giving him a sense of refuge and direction amidst the chaos of global issues. In a way, this reflects the message of Psalm 91, which invites believers to find refuge in something greater than themselves. God's presence offers a foundation that remains steady, allowing us to engage with the world while being anchored in something unchangeable. Just as Gates finds direction in his philanthropy, Psalm 91 encourages us to find peace in our spiritual refuge, knowing that we are held securely no matter what happens externally. Psalm 91 isn't only about large-scale historical or global events. It's deeply personal, meant for the everyday struggles and fears we face. Each of us has moments of hardship when we need a safe place to retreat. Imagine an individual facing a life-threatening illness. For many, the experience is a mental and emotional battle as much as a physical one. The person may feel isolated, afraid, and unsure about the future. But finding refuge in God can provide a profound sense of peace and stability. Countless cancer survivors have shared that their faith in God gave them the courage to face their diagnoses and treatments. They often speak of feeling held by a power greater than themselves, a presence that offers comfort when nothing else can. This sense of refuge doesn't necessarily remove the challenges or suffering, but it provides a source of strength that helps them endure. This is what makes Psalm 91 so powerful. It promises not an escape from hardship, but a steady, unbreakable support system. It assures believers that even when they walk through the darkest valleys, they are not alone. This divine refuge is a reminder that God is actively present, offering His strength as a shield against fear and despair. Psalm 91 goes on to detail the extent of God's protection. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday. Here, the psalmist emphasizes that God's protection is all-encompassing. It covers every aspect of life, from physical dangers to unseen threats. In times of global crises, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, this reassurance resonates deeply. Many people found themselves dealing with unprecedented anxiety and fear of illness. For believers, Psalm 91 became a source of comfort, reminding them that God's protection extends to every moment, every situation. This isn't to say that believers are immune to life's challenges, but rather that they are protected spiritually, equipped with the resilience to face whatever comes their way. During the pandemic, frontline workers, nurses, doctors, and healthcare professionals embodied the bravery and trust described in Psalm 91. Many of these individuals drew strength from their faith, finding a refuge in God that allowed them to care for others despite the risk to their own health. These healthcare heroes demonstrated what it means to live with courage, anchored by the conviction that they are under the shadow of the Almighty. Viewing God as a refuge fundamentally changes how believers experience life. It shifts the focus from external circumstances to internal security. When we understand that our peace and safety are found in God's presence, we are no longer easily shaken by what happens around us. The challenges remain, but our response to them becomes different. Psalm 91 teaches that God's refuge is an active, ongoing protection. It's not a one-time promise, but a continual covering. As we live our lives, this concept of refuge invites us to see God as our steadfast place of peace and stability. Just as a soldier finds strength in a fortified camp, we find courage in God's presence. The assurance of His protection allows us to approach life with confidence, facing challenges head-on, knowing we are not alone. In essence, exploring Psalm 91 reveals a profound truth. God's presence is our ultimate refuge. It is a place of safety, of renewal, and of courage. It transforms our fears into faith and our anxieties into peace, creating an inner fortress that nothing in the world can shake. Psalm 91 doesn't just call us to seek refuge in God during moments of crisis. It invites us to abide in His presence continually. Abiding is more than a quick retreat when times get tough. It's a steady, ongoing commitment to live close to God no matter the circumstances. The word abide implies a deeper kind of relationship, one that is rooted, sustained, and unwavering. To abide is to dwell, to stay, to remain. It's a choice to live daily within the safety and peace that God offers. Think of it this way. When we abide in God, we're not just stopping by temporarily to recharge or seek comfort. We're making a conscious decision to let His presence become our permanent dwelling place. Just as a tree remains anchored to its roots, drawing nourishment and strength from the soil, our lives are nourished and strengthened by staying connected to God. Abiding in His presence provides the spiritual grounding we need to face each day with courage and resilience. To understand the transformative power of abiding, let's consider a historical figure like Mother Teresa, known worldwide for her commitment to serving the poor and marginalized. Mother Teresa's life was a testament to what it means to abide in faith and love. Despite witnessing extreme suffering and poverty, she remained steadfast in her mission, fueled by a deep, abiding connection with God. Every day, she spent hours in prayer, seeking the strength and guidance to serve others. This wasn't a temporary visit to God's presence. It was a lifestyle rooted in His love and compassion. For Mother Teresa, abiding in God's presence was what gave her the resilience to continue her work in the face of overwhelming need. Her faith wasn't shaken by the darkness around her because her spirit was anchored in something greater. This is the essence of abiding. It's a continuous act of faith that sustains us, allowing us to draw strength, peace, and purpose from God, even when the world feels chaotic. In today's world, the idea of abiding in God's presence might seem challenging, especially when we're bombarded with distractions and worries. However, abiding is less about escaping from reality and more about carrying a steady sense of peace into our daily lives. It's about choosing to live in faith rather than fear, to focus on God's promises rather than the pressures we face. Consider the story of Denzel Washington, a respected actor and director who has openly shared his faith journey. Washington frequently talks about how he begins and ends each day with prayer, grounding himself in God's presence. Despite the challenges of fame, industry pressures, and personal struggles, he chooses to abide in his faith. Washington's practice of prayer and reflection demonstrates that abiding in God's presence doesn't require extraordinary actions. It's a simple, intentional decision to connect with God daily, allowing His peace to center our hearts and minds. Denzel's example shows us that abiding isn't reserved for monks, priests, or those in religious vocations. It's for everyone, whether you're an actor, a teacher, a student, or a parent. Abiding in God's presence is about living with a conscious awareness of His love and protection. It's a continuous act of faith that grounds us, giving us strength to face each day with confidence and purpose. Abiding in God's presence doesn't mean that life will always be smooth. In fact, it's often during difficult times that abiding becomes most essential. Psalm 91 reminds us that God is our refuge, but it also calls us to remain steadfast within that refuge, even when challenges arise. This is the difference between a momentary shelter and a lifelong dwelling place. When we choose to abide, we commit to staying close to God, even in the face of hardship. Take the example of J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Rowling faced severe challenges before her success, including financial hardship, single motherhood, and rejection from multiple publishers. During these challenging years, she held on to a sense of purpose and faith, even when it would have been easier to give up. While Rowling's journey wasn't explicitly religious, her resilience reflects the principle of abiding, staying rooted in one's purpose, and drawing strength from a deeper source. Her story is a reminder that abiding isn't about avoiding life's storms, but finding the courage to endure them with a steady heart. For those of faith, abiding in God provides that inner strength. Even when we face rejection, loss, or hardship, we have an anchor that keeps us steady. Abiding means we are not swayed by every challenge. Instead, we draw resilience from God's constant presence. This inner strength allows us to move forward, not because life is easy, but because we are spiritually grounded. Abiding is also a shield, a protective measure that guards us against the negative influences that try to pull us away from peace and purpose. Psalm 91 describes abiding in God as a way to overcome fear, saying, "You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day." Fear and doubt are often the biggest barriers to peace, keeping us from fully trusting in God's plan. When we choose to abide, we actively reject fear, choosing instead to stand firm in faith. This is especially powerful when we're confronted with situations that test our limits. For instance, public figures like Oprah Winfrey have spoken about overcoming tremendous obstacles through a mindset of faith and resilience. Oprah faced poverty, abuse, and discrimination, yet she remained committed to her purpose, often citing her faith as a source of strength. Her story illustrates how abiding in a sense of purpose and faith can create an unshakable foundation, allowing us to withstand life's most difficult challenges. Abiding in God works the same way. It helps us stay grounded and protected, allowing us to face fear and doubt with confidence. When we choose to remain in His presence, we find a sense of peace that transcends circumstances. Our worries may not vanish, but they lose their power over us because we are anchored in something far greater. One of the most beautiful aspects of abiding is that it doesn't just protect us, it transforms us. When we dwell in God's presence, we gradually become more like Him, more patient, loving, and compassionate. Abiding isn't passive. It actively shapes our character, helping us to grow spiritually and emotionally. Think of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was known not only for his courage but for his compassion and love for humanity. His abiding faith in God transformed his approach to leadership, allowing him to lead a movement rooted in peace and justice. King's commitment to nonviolence and love, even in the face of hatred, was a direct result of his relationship with God. Abiding shaped his character, enabling him to respond to injustice with grace and conviction. When we abide, we too are transformed. God's love becomes our guide, shaping our responses to challenges and helping us live with purpose. Abiding gives us the strength to stand firm, but also the grace to love others, even in difficult circumstances. It's a continuous process that molds us, making us more resilient, more compassionate, and more grounded. Psalm 91 doesn't just speak to the abstract idea of divine protection. It reaches directly into our real, often messy human experiences. Its promises of refuge and protection are meant for times when life feels overwhelming and hope seems dim. The psalm speaks to the person facing intense personal trials, reminding them that God's presence is a constant, reliable refuge. To dwell in the shadow of the Almighty is to stay connected to a source of strength that doesn't waver, even when everything else seems to crumble. Consider the life of Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, who faced enormous challenges during his tenure. Roosevelt assumed office during the Great Depression, a period of unprecedented economic hardship. Millions were unemployed, and the national morale was at an all-time low. Roosevelt's famous fireside chats were not only efforts to provide practical solutions, but also to offer comfort and hope to a struggling nation. Behind the scenes, Roosevelt faced his own battles, including a lifelong struggle with polio that left him paralyzed from the waist down. Yet, his personal hardships did not deter him. He held on, driven by a deep inner resilience that many close to him attributed to his faith. Roosevelt's life reflects the principle of holding on in times of trouble, finding a refuge in his inner convictions and sense of purpose. Like the psalmist in Psalm 91, he found a way to remain steady in the face of adversity, using his own suffering to inspire a nation. This example underscores the power of holding on, of remaining connected to something greater than ourselves, especially in moments of personal and collective hardship. For many individuals, the concept of holding on becomes most relevant during periods of personal struggle, illness, financial troubles, or relational conflicts. In these times, faith serves as a stabilizing force, helping them to endure and maintain hope. Imagine someone who has lost their job or someone facing a severe illness. Such experiences can shake even the strongest individuals to their core. However, Psalm 91 reminds us that in these moments, God is present as a refuge, offering a steady foundation to lean on. A modern example is that of Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple Inc., who publicly battled cancer in the final years of his life. Jobs faced an uncertain future, yet remained focused on his purpose and legacy, deeply anchored in a belief in the larger order of things. Although not religious in a traditional sense, Jobs often spoke about the importance of following one's inner guidance and having faith in the journey, no matter how unpredictable. His journey was marked by resilience and an almost spiritual sense of purpose, which allowed him to leave an enduring impact. Jobs' story serves as a powerful example of how holding on to faith, whether religious or spiritual, can provide clarity and strength during dark times. Psalm 91 promises that God's protection surrounds us like a shield, empowering us to face each day with courage. When we hold on to this promise, we find the strength to endure even the most difficult moments. Holding on in times of trouble doesn't always look like bold, public displays of courage. Often, it's found in the quiet, unseen resilience of ordinary individuals who continue moving forward despite hardship. This resilience can be found in countless everyday examples. The single parent working multiple jobs to provide for their children, the young person battling depression, or the elderly individual facing the loss of a lifelong partner. Each of these people demonstrates the power of faith in action, embodying the quiet strength that Psalm 91 describes. Psalm 91:7 states, 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. This verse emphasizes that even when we're surrounded by adversity, God's protection keeps us steady. Those who hold on in faith often experience a peace that others cannot understand, a peace that transcends the immediate chaos around them. Think of someone like Maya Angelou, the renowned poet and activist, who overcame a traumatic childhood and went on to inspire millions with her words. Angelou's life was filled with hardship, but she held on, drawing strength from her faith and the belief that her life had meaning beyond her struggles. She spoke often about the importance of resilience and hope, describing faith as the force that allowed her to rise above her past. Her example shows that holding on isn't about denying hardship. It's about rising above it, fueled by an inner conviction that life holds purpose beyond present pain. One of the most comforting aspects of Psalm 91 is that it acknowledges human weakness while emphasizing divine strength. We are reminded that even when we feel overwhelmed, God is there to lift us up. Verse 12 declares, "In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone." This verse speaks directly to those moments when we feel like we can't go on, reassuring us that God's support is always there, even when our own strength fails. This promise becomes especially relevant during times when we feel inadequate or powerless. For example, medical professionals and first responders often witness the fragility of life in their work, yet they continue to serve, holding on to a higher sense of purpose. Many of these individuals have spoken about how their faith helps them to stay grounded and resilient, giving them the strength to provide comfort and care, even when faced with intense emotional and physical demands. In times of personal weakness, holding on to faith acts as an anchor, reminding us that we're not alone in our struggles. It gives us the courage to persevere, even when we feel incapable of doing so. Psalm 91 reassures us that God's hands are there to bear us up, providing the support we need to keep going. Endurance is at the heart of holding on in times of trouble, and Psalm 91 teaches that this endurance comes from abiding in God's presence. When we choose to abide continuously, we develop an inner resilience that doesn't fade, no matter the circumstances. This endurance isn't about gritting our teeth and bearing through pain. It's about finding peace in God's presence, knowing that we are held securely in His care. Consider the life of Helen Keller, who overcame the dual challenges of being blind and deaf. Despite these limitations, Keller went on to become a world-renowned author and activist, inspiring millions with her perseverance. Keller's resilience was rooted in her deep spirituality and belief in God's presence in her life. She famously said, "Faith is the strength by which a shattered world shall emerge into the light." For Keller, abiding in faith provided her with the strength to transcend her physical limitations and fulfill her life's purpose. Psalm 91 offers this same promise to all who choose to abide in God's presence. It teaches us that true endurance isn't about pushing through on our own, but about drawing strength from a source greater than ourselves. Abiding provides us with a peace that sustains us, allowing us to hold on, even in the face of life's greatest challenges. To illustrate the sustaining power of faith, let's consider the story of Corrie ten Boom, a Dutch woman who survived a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. Corrie and her family were imprisoned for hiding Jews in their home, and she endured unimaginable suffering. Yet throughout her ordeal, Corrie held on to her faith, finding strength in her belief that God was with her, even in the darkest of places. Her resilience allowed her not only to survive, but also to forgive those who had wronged her, ultimately dedicating her life to spreading a message of love and forgiveness. Corrie ten Boom's story highlights the incredible power of holding on in times of trouble. Her faith became a fortress, shielding her mind and spirit from the hatred and violence around her. Like the psalmist in Psalm 91, she found refuge in God's presence, and that refuge sustained her through unimaginable pain. Her life serves as a profound reminder that God's protection isn't always about physical safety. It's about the inner strength that allows us to endure, forgive, and find peace, even in the most challenging circumstances. Psalm 91 vividly describes God as a shield, a powerful protector that guards believers from both seen and unseen dangers. The psalmist writes, "He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall find refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler." This poetic language paints a picture of God's protection as both intimate and formidable. Like the wings of a mother bird sheltering her young, God's presence shields us, offering both strength and a sense of safety. This shield isn't merely a physical barrier. It's a shield of faith and trust, a spiritual armor that empowers us to face life with confidence and peace. The image of a shield is central to many faith traditions, symbolizing not just protection, but a steadfastness that comes from placing trust in a power beyond ourselves. In ancient times, warriors would rely on their shields as both offensive and defensive tools. Similarly, Psalm 91 presents faith as a shield that doesn't just defend against life's hardships, but also equips us to face them head-on. Faith, when rooted in trust in God's promises, becomes a powerful force, giving us the courage to move forward even when we are uncertain. In modern times, faith as a shield can be understood as the inner confidence and resilience that comes from trusting God's guidance and protection. Faith doesn't remove our challenges, but it changes our response to them. Rather than feeling helpless or fearful, we approach life with the assurance that we are supported and safeguarded. This inner shield of faith is what allows individuals to face seemingly insurmountable challenges with grace and strength. A well-known example is that of Mahatma Gandhi, who led India's struggle for independence through nonviolent resistance. Despite facing tremendous opposition, imprisonment, and threats to his life, Gandhi remained unwavering in his commitment to nonviolence. His strength came not from physical weapons, but from an unshakable faith in the power of truth and justice, which he described as God as truth. Gandhi's shield wasn't visible, yet it was one of the most powerful shields in history. His faith became his protection, giving him the resilience to lead a movement that changed the course of a nation. Gandhi's life exemplifies how faith can act as a shield, even in the face of powerful adversity. While he didn't directly speak of Psalm 91, his belief in a divine presence and the protection of truth reflects the message of the psalm. Faith doesn't necessarily protect us from all harm, but it provides a shield of inner peace and purpose that allows us to withstand the challenges we face. Faith and trust are intertwined. Without trust, faith is incomplete. Psalm 91 speaks repeatedly about trusting in God's promises, emphasizing that it's this trust that strengthens our shield. Trusting in God is an active choice. It requires us to let go of our fears, doubts, and need for control, and to rely on a power greater than ourselves. This trust doesn't develop overnight. It's built over time, often through experiences of hardship and divine faithfulness. In our own lives, trust becomes the foundation that holds our faith steady. Think of someone like Rosa Parks, whose single act of defiance against racial segregation sparked the civil rights movement in the United States. Parks's decision to refuse giving up her seat was rooted in a profound trust in the justice of her cause and in a higher moral authority. Her faith became a shield that protected her from the fear of backlash. Trusting in what she believed to be right, she stood firm, and her act of courage became a catalyst for societal change. Parks' story illustrates how trust in a higher power, or in a just cause, fortifies our shield of faith. When we place our trust in something beyond ourselves, whether it's a divine presence or a purpose greater than our own fears, we gain the resilience to face whatever life throws our way. This trust isn't blind. It's a deeply rooted conviction that, come what may, we are held in a divine plan that provides ultimate protection. Fear and doubt are often described as the biggest barriers to peace and purpose, and Psalm 91 offers faith as the antidote to these emotions. Fear can cloud our judgment, paralyze us, and lead us to make choices rooted in insecurity. But when we hold up our shield of faith, we can confront fear head-on, knowing that we are not alone. Faith doesn't eliminate fear, but it empowers us to walk through it with courage and confidence. Consider how Olympic athletes face immense pressure, often risking injury, failure, and the eyes of the world on them as they compete. Athletes like Simone Biles and Michael Phelps have openly discussed how they use mental techniques rooted in faith, visualization, and self-belief to overcome anxiety and fear. Their faith acts as a shield that protects them from the pressures that could easily break their focus and drive. For Phelps, who has also struggled with mental health challenges, faith in his training and in his support system allowed him to continue competing at the highest level. By trusting in his preparation and the support around him, he was able to push past fear and doubt. This kind of shield, faith in one's purpose and path, is what allows individuals to perform at their best, even under extreme pressure. It's a reminder that when we root our faith in God, we gain a shield that doesn't just protect us, but also empowers us to pursue our goals with confidence. Psalm 91 doesn't just promise God's protection. It equips us with the confidence to face life boldly. When we believe that God is our shield, we gain the courage to step forward, even when we don't know what lies ahead. This faith-based confidence is like a suit of spiritual armor, protecting us from the negativity, criticism, and self-doubt that we may encounter. The concept of faith as armor is seen throughout history. One prominent example is Martin Luther King Jr., whose faith-inspired speeches and actions helped galvanize the civil rights movement. King faced threats, attacks, and imprisonment, yet he held on to his belief that God was his shield. His confidence was rooted in a divine promise of justice and equality, which he trusted wholeheartedly. King's faith became his armor, allowing him to speak out boldly and act courageously in the face of extreme opposition. For King, Psalm 91's message of protection wasn't just comforting, it was empowering. It gave him the courage to stand firm, knowing that his actions were guided by a higher purpose. His story is a testament to how faith can shield us from fear, freeing us to pursue our calling with courage and conviction. On a personal level, the shield of faith is something we all have the opportunity to wield in our lives. Whether facing a difficult decision, a period of loss, or an unexpected setback, trusting in God's protection provides a sense of peace and strength. Reflecting on my own journey, I've found that when I consciously choose to hold up my shield of faith, I am less affected by stress and worry. Instead of focusing on what could go wrong, I remind myself that I am protected by a power that is greater than any challenge I face. This personal trust in God's promises has become a stabilizing force, allowing me to navigate life with a greater sense of calm and purpose. Faith as a shield isn't about ignoring life's realities. It's about facing them with the confidence that comes from knowing you are not alone. Ultimately, Psalm 91's promise of protection invites us to live with a sense of resilience and hope. When we embrace faith as a shield, we step into each day ready to face whatever comes, secure in the knowledge that we are guarded by God's love. The shield of faith isn't just a concept, it's a way of life. It's choosing to trust, to hope, and to stand firm, knowing that our steps are watched over and our hearts protected. Living with this shield doesn't mean we won't face challenges, but it means those challenges won't destroy us. It empowers us to keep moving forward, to pursue our dreams, and to live boldly, unafraid of what lies ahead. Psalm 91 offers a powerful choice: to live by faith instead of fear. When it says, "You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day," it acknowledges that fear is a natural part of life. There are real threats, challenges, and uncertainties we face each day. However, the psalmist invites us to choose faith over these fears, to place trust in God's protection, and allow that faith to guide our responses. Fear is often a response to the unknown. It surfaces in moments of uncertainty, and if left unchecked, it can become a driving force in our decisions. Psalm 91 reminds us that, although fear is real, it doesn't have to rule over us. Instead, we can hold on to a steady faith that serves as an anchor, allowing us to face even the most daunting situations with courage and peace. Choosing faith over fear is not a one-time decision. It's a daily choice that shapes how we respond to life's circumstances. Each day presents us with opportunities to either surrender to anxiety or trust in God's promises. When we choose faith, we're not denying the reality of our challenges. Instead, we're affirming that God's power is greater than any challenge we might face. This choice requires intentionality, a conscious decision to lean into faith, even when fear seems like the easier option. Consider the story of Oprah Winfrey, who has spoken openly about her difficult childhood, marked by poverty and abuse. Despite the hardships, Oprah chose to believe that her life had meaning and purpose beyond her circumstances. She often describes how she relied on her faith to keep her going, even in her darkest moments. For Oprah, choosing faith over fear meant envisioning a future that was different from her past. This choice wasn't easy, but it allowed her to transform her life, ultimately becoming one of the most influential women in the world. Oprah's story illustrates that faith over fear isn't about ignoring reality. It's about holding on to a vision of what can be. Like the psalmist in Psalm 91, she made a deliberate choice to trust in something greater, allowing her faith to guide her through life's uncertainties. This decision empowered her to rise above fear, creating a life defined by purpose rather than limitations. There are times when fear feels overwhelming, when it seems to take control of our thoughts, actions, and even our beliefs. In these moments, faith becomes a lifeline, pulling us back from the edge of despair. Psalm 91 offers a vivid reminder of God's protection, urging us to seek refuge in Him rather than giving in to fear. Choosing faith over fear doesn't mean fear will disappear entirely, but it does mean that fear loses its hold over us. Think of the story of Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister during World War II. Facing the Nazi threat, Churchill famously rallied his nation with unwavering courage, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. He often spoke of holding on and standing firm, a sentiment rooted in faith and resilience. Although Churchill wasn't openly religious, his speeches and actions reflected a deep conviction that the British people could overcome their fears. His words, "We shall never surrender," became a rallying cry that inspired a nation to stand firm in the face of fear. Churchill's example shows that choosing faith over fear isn't about being free from fear. It's about refusing to let fear dictate our actions. Psalm 91 encourages us to lean into our faith, to trust that we are shielded, and to move forward even when fear whispers that it's impossible. By choosing faith, we allow God's presence to be our guide, enabling us to face challenges with courage and clarity. One of the most powerful aspects of choosing faith over fear is the inner peace it provides. Psalm 91 isn't merely about outward protection. It's about a peace that fills us from within. When we trust in God's promises, we experience a calm that transcends circumstances. This peace doesn't come from the absence of challenges, but from the assurance that we are not facing them alone. In today's world, many people grapple with anxiety, stress, and a constant sense of worry. Faith becomes an antidote to this inner turmoil, grounding us in a peace that goes beyond understanding. It's this inner peace that allows us to navigate life's ups and downs without losing our sense of direction. When we choose faith, we find that we are less swayed by external circumstances because our stability comes from within. A real-life example of this peace can be seen in the life of Mother Teresa. Despite witnessing immense suffering and poverty, Mother Teresa maintained an unshakable inner peace. She attributed this peace to her faith, which enabled her to face each day with compassion and purpose. Her life exemplifies the serenity that comes from choosing faith over fear, showing that even in the face of profound hardship, we can find peace when we trust in God's presence. In choosing faith over fear, we also build resilience, a capacity to bounce back, to keep moving forward, even when the path is uncertain. Psalm 91 empowers us to live with this resilience, promising that those who trust in God's protection will be upheld, even in the face of adversity. Faith strengthens our ability to endure, reminding us that no matter how daunting life may seem, we are equipped to overcome. Resilience is often associated with strength, but in reality, it's rooted in trust. When we trust that we are protected and guided, we become resilient. We find the courage to persevere, not because the journey is easy, but because we are confident in God's presence. For those who feel weighed down by worry or fear, Psalm 91 offers a path to resilience. It invites us to choose faith, to trust that we are not alone, and to face life's challenges with courage. Each step we take in faith builds resilience, allowing us to confront fear with the assurance that we are shielded by God's love. Ultimately, choosing faith over fear changes how we experience life. It shifts our focus from what we cannot control to what we can. Our response, our trust, and our willingness to let God's promises guide us. Psalm 91 empowers us to live boldly, to face the unknown with confidence, and to rest in the peace that comes from faith. This choice isn't always easy, but it's one that brings us closer to a life of purpose, resilience, and inner peace. By choosing faith, we don't just find protection, we find a new way of seeing the world through the lens of hope, trust, and assurance. Fear may come, but it will never have the final say, for our lives are held securely under the wings of the Almighty. Psalm 91 is more than a promise of physical safety. It's a call to trust in God's greater plan. The psalm assures us that those who dwell in God's presence are under His protection. This assurance doesn't mean that life will be without difficulties. Instead, it means that we can have faith that God's purpose is unfolding, even in the midst of challenges. Trusting in God's plan requires us to surrender our anxieties and to believe that, regardless of our circumstances, there's a purpose to every experience. Trusting in a divine plan is one of the most profound yet challenging aspects of faith. When life seems uncertain, or when we face setbacks, it's natural to feel doubt or frustration. Yet Psalm 91 reminds us that God's protection isn't just about shielding us from harm, it's about guiding us through life's storms. By trusting in His plan, we find the strength to navigate difficulties with peace and confidence, knowing that every step is part of a larger journey. Trusting in God's plan is rarely a one-time decision. It's a journey that unfolds with each experience, each test of faith, and each moment of uncertainty. This kind of trust requires letting go of the need to control outcomes and instead leaning into the belief that God's wisdom surpasses our own. Trust is about embracing the unknown, accepting that we may not have all the answers, but that we are guided by a divine purpose. Consider the story of Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa and a symbol of resilience and justice. Mandela spent 27 years in prison for his anti-apartheid activities, and during those years he faced unimaginable hardship and isolation. Yet, Mandela held on to his faith that his suffering had a purpose, that there was a larger plan at work. His ability to trust in a future he couldn't yet see gave him the strength to endure his imprisonment, and eventually, to lead his country toward reconciliation and healing. Mandela's story reflects the essence of trusting in God's plan, even when the path is difficult. He didn't allow his circumstances to dictate his sense of purpose. Instead, he believed that his life was part of a greater design, and this belief sustained him through his darkest moments. Like Psalm 91, Mandela's story reminds us that faith in a higher purpose can bring peace and resilience, even when we cannot see the end of the road. One of the biggest challenges of faith is trusting in God's plan when life feels chaotic or unpredictable. In these times, we may question why certain things happen or why we face particular struggles. Trusting in God's plan doesn't mean we understand everything. Rather, it means we find peace in the mystery, knowing that there is a purpose beyond our comprehension. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many people faced unprecedented uncertainty. Jobs were lost, routines were disrupted, and the world seemed to shift overnight. For many, this period tested their ability to trust in God's plan. But it was also a time when people found solace in their faith, trusting that there was a reason for everything. Families spent more time together, people found new ways to connect, and communities supported each other in ways they hadn't before. This period showed us that, even in the face of uncertainty, we can trust that God is working through the challenges, bringing growth and resilience. The pandemic is a powerful reminder that trusting in God's plan doesn't guarantee a life free from hardship. Instead, it provides a foundation that helps us navigate the ups and downs with peace. Psalm 91 offers this reassurance, reminding us that we are covered and protected, even when the world around us feels uncertain. This trust allows us to find meaning in our experiences, knowing that every moment, no matter how challenging, is part of God's greater design. Psalm 91 invites us to see each experience as part of a divine purpose, a step in a journey guided by God. This perspective can be life-changing, especially when we face trials that seem meaningless or unfair. Trusting in God's plan allows us to view these trials not as random hardships but as opportunities for growth, resilience, and deepened faith. One prominent example of someone who found purpose in every experience is Helen Keller, who became blind and deaf after a childhood illness. Rather than viewing her disabilities as limitations, Keller embraced her life with faith and optimism, believing that her challenges had a purpose. She dedicated her life to advocating for others with disabilities, inspiring millions with her resilience and hope. Keller famously said, Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. Her unwavering faith in God's plan transformed her life's obstacles into a powerful testimony of strength and purpose. Keller's life illustrates that when we trust in God's plan, we can find meaning in even the most difficult experiences. Like Psalm 91, her story reminds us that we are not defined by our struggles, but by how we respond to them. Trusting in a divine plan gives us the perspective to see challenges as opportunities for growth, and it allows us to walk through life with purpose and confidence. Trusting in God's plan ultimately transforms the way we approach life. It allows us to embrace each day with confidence, knowing that we are part of something greater. Psalm 91 encourages us to walk through life without fear, secure in the knowledge that we are covered and protected. This trust gives us the freedom to live boldly, to pursue our dreams, and to face challenges with a steady heart. For those who struggle with anxiety or worry, trusting in God's plan can be incredibly freeing. It provides a foundation that is unshakable, a source of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. When we trust that God's plan is unfolding, we find the strength to let go of what we can't control, allowing us to focus on what truly matters, living with purpose, kindness, and faith. One of the most freeing aspects of trusting in God's plan is the ability to surrender control. Psalm 91 invites us to let go of the need to know every detail or predict every outcome. Instead, it calls us to rest in the knowledge that God is in control, guiding our steps and protecting us along the way. This surrender doesn't mean we stop caring about our future or working toward our goals. It means we release the anxiety that comes from trying to control what we cannot. Surrendering control allows us to live with peace and clarity, even when the path is unclear. Take the story of Denzel Washington, an acclaimed actor who has often spoken about the importance of faith in his life. Washington credits his success to a trust in God's plan, even when he didn't understand the direction his life was taking. He once said, "Put God first in everything you do." By surrendering control and placing his faith in God, Washington found peace in his journey, allowing him to pursue his career with purpose and humility. Washington's example shows us that surrendering to God's plan doesn't mean giving up our ambitions. It means trusting that God's timing and purpose are better than anything we could design on our own. When we surrender control, we open ourselves to opportunities we might have overlooked, and we find a deeper sense of peace, knowing that our lives are in the hands of a loving Creator. Trusting in God's plan is also a journey of spiritual growth. Each time we surrender our fears and place our trust in Him, we deepen our faith. Psalm 91 reminds us that this trust isn't about perfection, it's about progress. With each experience, we learn to rely more on God and less on our own understanding. This growth allows us to live with a deeper sense of peace, knowing that we are always under His protection. The journey of trust is one that takes time and patience, but it leads to a profound inner peace. Psalm 91 calls us to this journey, inviting us to trust in a plan that is greater than ourselves. By embracing this trust, we not only find strength, but also experience the joy of knowing that our lives are guided by a loving, protective hand. The story of Daniel in the lion's den is one of the most well-known accounts in the Bible, and it powerfully illustrates the themes of trust, courage, and divine protection that Psalm 91 celebrates. Daniel's life is a testament to what it means to remain steadfast in faith, even when facing the greatest possible danger. His trust in God wasn't shaken by external threats. Instead, it became the foundation that enabled him to stand firm. In the book of Daniel, we learn that Daniel was a highly respected official in the kingdom of Babylon. His wisdom and integrity earned him favor with King Darius, but it also stirred jealousy among other officials. These officials plotted to bring him down by convincing the king to sign a decree that forbade praying to any god or man other than the king himself. They knew that Daniel's devotion to God was unwavering and that he would continue to pray regardless of the law. Despite knowing the consequences, Daniel chose to stay true to his faith. He continued praying to God, fully aware that this decision could cost him his life. Daniel's choice reflects the essence of Psalm 91's call to abide in faith, even when the world demands compromise. His actions show us that faith isn't about convenience, it's about commitment. Daniel's trust in God was so deep that he was willing to face death rather than abandon his beliefs. When Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, he had every reason to be afraid. The lions represented a very real physical threat. But instead of giving in to fear, Daniel placed his trust in God's protection. His faith wasn't just an abstract belief, it was a living force that gave him peace in the face of danger. Daniel knew that his life was in God's hands, and this knowledge gave him the courage to face the lions with calm and confidence. That night, God sent an angel to shut the mouths of the lions, and Daniel emerged from the den unharmed. His survival wasn't a result of luck or human intervention. It was a testament to the power of divine protection. Daniel's story beautifully mirrors the promise of Psalm 91, which assures us that those who dwell in God's presence are shielded from harm. His faith acted as a spiritual armor, a shield that protected him even in the most perilous of situations. Daniel's example teaches us that faith in God's protection isn't just comforting, it's empowering. It enables us to face our fears head-on, knowing that we are guarded by a power far greater than ourselves. When we place our trust in God, we too are protected from the lions in our own lives, the fears, doubts, and challenges that threaten to overwhelm us. Daniel's story also highlights the courage that comes from standing by one's beliefs, even when it means facing persecution. In today's world, standing up for our values can sometimes feel like walking into a lion's den. Whether it's standing up against injustice, defending our beliefs, or making choices that go against popular opinion, living by faith often requires courage. Think of figures like Malala Yousafzai, the young Pakistani activist who stood up for girls' education in the face of Taliban threats. Despite the danger, Malala continued to speak out, refusing to let fear dictate her actions. Like Daniel, she faced her lions with courage, trusting that her voice and her mission had a purpose beyond herself. Malala's story, much like Daniel's, illustrates that true faith requires us to stand firm even when the risks are high. Both Daniel and Malala remind us that faith can be a powerful source of courage. When we trust in a purpose greater than our own safety or comfort, we find the strength to face challenges that might otherwise seem impossible. Psalm 91 assures us that when we stand firm in our beliefs, we are protected by God's presence, allowing us to live courageously and boldly. Daniel's time in the lion's den also shows us how faith acts as a shield against fear and doubt. Being thrown into a den of lions is the ultimate test of courage, yet Daniel's trust in God kept him calm. He wasn't immune to fear, but his faith provided him with the strength to overcome it. Psalm 91, 5-6 echoes this sentiment, saying, "You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day." This verse reminds us that faith has the power to guard our hearts against fear, even in the most frightening circumstances. In our own lives, we may not face literal lions, but we encounter situations that can feel just as daunting. We may face fears about the future, challenges in relationships, or pressures at work. In these moments, choosing faith over fear allows us to find peace. When we rely on God's protection, we experience a calm that enables us to face our challenges with a steady heart, just as Daniel did. The story of Daniel encourages us to hold on to our faith, especially when fear tries to take over. His example reminds us that God's protection isn't just about shielding us from physical harm. It's also about providing us with the courage to overcome inner struggles. When we trust in God's promises, we are empowered to walk through life with peace and confidence, regardless of the challenges we face. Daniel's experience in the lion's den is also a powerful lesson in perseverance. Trusting in God's plan doesn't always mean that our path will be easy, but it does mean that we are supported every step of the way. Daniel's unwavering faith allowed him to persevere, even when his life was at risk. His trust in God's protection gave him the strength to endure the trial, and in the end, his faith was rewarded. This lesson is especially relevant for those facing long-term challenges. Whether it's a prolonged illness, a difficult career path, or a personal struggle, Daniel's story reminds us that perseverance is possible when we place our trust in God. Just as Daniel's faith sustained him in the lion's den, our faith can sustain us through life's challenges, providing us with the resilience to keep going. Consider the story of Martin Luther King Jr., who faced constant threats and obstacles throughout his life. His unwavering faith allowed him to persevere, even in the face of extreme adversity. Like Daniel, King placed his trust in a higher power, which gave him the strength to continue his work despite the dangers. His faith became a source of endurance, allowing him to press on with courage and determination. Ultimately, Daniel's story is a reminder that God's protection is available to us in every situation. Psalm 91 promises that those who dwell in God's presence are shielded from harm, and Daniel's experience is a powerful testament to this truth. His faith didn't just save him from physical danger, it gave him peace, courage, and resilience. By trusting in God's protection, Daniel found the strength to face his fears and emerge victorious. For believers today, Daniel's story encourages us to place our trust in God, especially in times of uncertainty. Whether we're facing a personal challenge or a difficult decision, we can find peace in knowing that God is with us, protecting us, and guiding our steps. Psalm 91 calls us to live with this assurance, allowing us to face life's lions with a steady heart and a strong spirit. Daniel's story in the lion's den serves as a powerful illustration of how faith transforms fear into strength. By placing his trust in God, Daniel was able to confront a terrifying situation with courage and peace. His example teaches us that when we abide in God's presence, we are empowered to face any challenge, knowing that we are shielded by divine protection. Psalm 91 echoes this lesson, inviting us to dwell in God's presence and trust in his protection. When we choose faith over fear, we gain the strength to persevere, the courage to stand firm, and the peace to face life's trials with confidence. Like Daniel, we are reminded that God's protection is always with us, allowing us to live boldly and fearlessly. Psalm 91 ultimately calls us to a lifestyle of abiding trust, a steady, unwavering confidence in God's protection and guidance. The psalm is more than just a prayer for safety. It's an invitation to live within the shelter of God's presence, to make his protection our constant source of peace. Abiding trust isn't something that we experience in moments of crisis alone. It's a daily commitment to dwell in God's presence, to trust Him in every aspect of our lives, and to allow that trust to transform us. Abiding trust is about choosing faith as a foundation, a core part of our identity that informs how we live, work, and interact with the world. It's about letting go of control and allowing God's promises to guide our path. This trust is not just about feeling safe, but about finding strength, resilience, and courage in every season of life. Through the words of Psalm 91, we are reminded that God's protection covers every area of our lives, giving us the confidence to live boldly and with purpose. To abide means to stay, to dwell, to make a conscious choice to remain close to God. Abiding trust is not a passive experience. It's an active decision that shapes our day-to-day lives. When we abide in God's presence, we find a peace that the world cannot give, a strength that goes beyond human understanding. Abiding means that we are rooted in faith, allowing God's presence to be our guide in every situation. Think of this abiding trust like the foundation of a building. A strong foundation provides stability, ensuring that the structure can withstand storms and challenges. Similarly, abiding trust gives us a stable foundation that keeps us grounded, even when life's storms come our way. By choosing to dwell in God's presence, we allow our lives to be built on a foundation that is unshakable. For individuals like Maya Angelou, who faced significant adversity in her life, abiding trust was the foundation that allowed her to persevere. Angelou's faith gave her the strength to overcome hardships and to speak with a powerful voice that continues to inspire millions. Her life exemplifies what it means to abide and trust, to let faith be the grounding force that sustains us, no matter the circumstances. Abiding trust also frees us from the anxieties and fears that often weigh us down. When we trust in God's protection, we don't have to carry the burden of worry or fear. Instead, we can live with a sense of freedom and peace, knowing that our lives are held in God's hands. Psalm 91 reminds us that God's protection is complete. It covers us in every moment and every situation. This assurance frees us from the need to constantly look over our shoulders or live in fear of the unknown. Consider the example of Helen Keller, who overcame immense challenges to live a life full of purpose and inspiration. Despite being blind and deaf, Keller trusted that her life had meaning beyond her limitations. Her trust in a divine plan freed her from the fear of what she couldn't do and allowed her to focus on what she could accomplish. Keller's life illustrates that abiding trust liberates us, enabling us to move beyond our fears and embrace our potential. In the same way, Saul Abedin, for example, Martin Luther King Jr. exemplified what it meant to live boldly with abiding trust. Despite facing threats and immense opposition, King continued his work with courage and conviction. His faith in God's protection gave him the strength to speak out against injustice and to lead a movement that changed history. King's life demonstrates that abiding trust empowers us to live boldly, to pursue what we know to be right, and to make a lasting impact on the living boldly with trust in God. Doesn't mean that we won't face challenges, but it does mean that those challenges won't define or defeat us. When we live with abiding trust, we are free to take on new opportunities, to step into unknown situations, and to embrace each moment with confidence, knowing that we are under God, trusting through every season. Psalm 91 invites grab. For those facing personal challenges, abiding trust offers hope. When we feel uncertain, abiding trust reminds us that we are not alone. When we feel weak, it reminds us that God's strength is available to us. Psalm 91 calls us to hold on to faith, especially in times of difficulty, allowing God's presence to be our refuge and strength. Abiding trust also gives us a sense of purpose and direction. When we live with confidence in God's plan, we find clarity in our path. Psalm 91 teaches us that God is not only our protector, but also our guide. He leads us, providing direction for our lives and helping us to fulfill our purpose. Abiding in His presence allows us to align our goals with His will, to seek His guidance, and to trust that He is directing our steps. In the story of Mother Teresa, we see how abiding trust gave her a profound sense of purpose. Despite witnessing extreme poverty and suffering, Mother Teresa found strength in her faith, trusting that her mission was guided by God. Her trust in His plan allowed her to dedicate her life to serving others, and her faith became a source of comfort for those she served. Mother Teresa's life is a powerful example of how abiding trust leads to a life of purpose, compassion, and direction. Living a life of abiding trust doesn't just change our circumstances, it changes us from within. When we choose to dwell in God's presence, we are transformed. We become more patient, more compassionate, and more resilient. Psalm 91 teaches us that abiding trust is not just about finding protection. It's about becoming the kind of person who lives with peace, joy, and courage. This inner transformation allows us to navigate life with a sense of calm, knowing that we are grounded in God's love. As we trust in God's promises, we find that we are no longer swayed by external pressures or uncertainties. Instead, we become rooted in faith, empowered to face each day with hope and confidence. This transformation allows us to live authentically, to be true to our values, and to make choices that reflect our faith. Psalm 91 invites us into this life of inner transformation, a life that is shaped by trust, resilience, and peace. Psalm 91 is a daily invitation to abide, to live with trust in God's protection, and to let that trust shape every area of our lives. This call to abide is a reminder that faith is not just a belief, it's a way of living. By choosing to dwell in God's presence, we allow His promises to become the foundation of our lives, guiding us, strengthening us, and giving us peace. Abiding trust is a journey, a continuous act of faith that grows with each experience. As we choose to trust God each day, we find that our lives are filled with a sense of purpose and joy. We live with courage, knowing that we are under the shadow of the Almighty, held and protected by a love that never fails.